Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 5 of the Sisters in Service podcast. You guys know me. I'm Kat Corchado, and I want all of you to understand that this podcast is a passion project born out of my own experiences as an Air Force veteran. I understand firsthand the unique challenges and triumphs that come with serving in the military and the transition to becoming a veteran. You know, this podcast is a tribute to all our people that serve, but not just the service member, our active duty people, our veterans, our military spouses, military brats, and of course, our veteran service organizations. This platform gives us an opportunity to share, learn, and grow together, acknowledging our shared experiences and providing support and encouragement to each other. Alongside this, most of you probably already know this, but I'm also doing the Why Not Wellness podcast. It's a little snippet, 15 minutes or less, but this is a space dedicated to helping everyone rediscover their fitness fabulosity. It's a journey towards feeling good in our bodies and embracing wellness. Because I believe that our health and wellness are the pillars upon which we build our lives, especially after service. I'm incredibly grateful for the support of our sponsors. The first one is Small Space Pilates, which is an online fitness platform offering live classes in strength training, stretching, and of course, Pilates. These classes are designed to be accessible and effective no matter where you are in your fitness journey. The second sponsor is the My Sexy Business. They offer guidance and help you to own a business that doesn't own you. So let's get started with our first guest for our new season. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Sisters in Service podcast. I am your host, Kat Corchado. You know who I am. I've been around for a little while. And our latest episode is about a veteran service organization that was started by someone who was not a veteran. Yeah, we'll get into that. So my guest today is Tony DeMeio. He's a veteran advocate, first responder, entrepreneur, and community leader whose career has spanned everything from founding a multi-million-dollar fitness company in the 1980s to coaching football at UCLA to producing more than 20,000 podcasts. He's the founder of Helping Heroes USA, a nonprofit that focuses on suicide prevention and mental health for veterans, active duty personnel, and first responders. Tony, welcome to the Sisters in Service podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on and helping us move our message forward. Suicide prevention, it's just that there's some amazing statistics, and that's why we're in the space.
Absolutely. So before we get there, Tony, you've had such a diverse career. And looking back, what shaped this for you? What was the thing that you just said, because a lot of people will stick with one thing and they stay with that one thing. They're afraid to go over here. They're afraid to go over there. But you were like, okay, I've done that. Let me go over here and coach. Okay, I've done that. Let me go do some podcasting. Okay, I've done that. Let me go over here. So first of all, what was it like for you to, because a lot of people have FOMO, not FOMO, they have, what's the word? Okay, I think of the phrase, imposter syndrome. Did you have any of that doing this, or you just said, I'm going to do this, and you did it?
I was born as a football coach. I think that's what's in your blood and your DNA. And I was very fortunate in my coaching career early on. I was able to work at UCLA under Dick Vermeil. And we had a Rose Bowl win. And I started designing exercise equipment and football equipment. And actually, he was instrumental in getting me into that business. So I ended up building a company called Duraflex Sports Products. And we made like 6,000 skateboards a day and 60,000 pieces of exercise equipment a month. And sold it to Carlson Industries, who is an $8 billion conglomerate. I was still just in my late 20s. And so from that point, you start to look at just things that you want to do and different things. I started doing some consulting, and I ended up in the consulting to a company and ended up owning it in the time management space, seminar business. And we had some great distributors for us. Tony Robbins was one of our distributors, Fred Pryor Seminar. So once you get kind of going and people start bringing you opportunities, and I think that's what happened for me. Foundationally, I always approached everything from what I learned as a football coach, the organizational skills, the people skills, a lot of discipline, and it takes that to be entrepreneurial. And so I think that was a common thread into all the ventures I got in. And, some of them were home runs and some were strikeouts. They're not all winners. You like to stay on the winning percentage, but, I've had some that after a while I figured out, like, well, why did I do this? But,
well, I think it's funny that you sound like a veteran, because a lot of veterans go through the same thing while they're active duty military. We're so used to pivoting on a dime when the military says, drop this because you're going over here, that I find that a lot of entrepreneurs are military veterans, and they kind of just cling on to it like, okay, what do I need to learn? What do I need to do? So Tony, out of all of those things that you have done in your lifetime, which one did you like the best? What was your favorite? Or do you have one?
I don't. I'll tell you what, a great one I had later on in life. I became the director of business development for Galpin Motors. And if anybody know who they are, but we were the number one Ford dealer in the world 30 years in a row. And also the number one Jaguar dealer and Aston Martin. And that was just a fun position. So as business development, we sponsored almost 100 golf tournaments a year with hole-in-one cars. And I had to attend all the galas and all kinds of events. So that was my job. And it was great. We had 285 salespeople, and I was involved in some of the sales training. And that was a real fun job. But, I think Duraflex was, anytime that you're running, you're the CEO and you're playing with your own money and you're running the show. So the seminar business was fun for a while. Made some great contacts there. A guy that became a friend of mine is Rick Goins, who is the former CEO of Tupperware, which retired now. I learned a lot from him about business. So along the way, I think you're fortunate that you pick up a lot of good tutors. And the UCLA staff, learned a lot from Coach DeMeio. There was also guys on there like Jim Mora, who went to the New Orleans Saints. If you remember him in the playoffs, was his famous.
Yes.
Jim Mora. But there was 12 coaches. I was actually Terry Donahue's assistant. So along the way, I think I've just been very fortunate to have a lot of good mentors and tutors. And, it's the old story, to be a good teacher, you've got to be a good student.
Yes.
So I think it's really been a blessing for me. The way I got into the veteran space is that in about 2015, I started consulting to an organization called Project Hero Ride Recovery. And what they did is they did cycling events, and we'd take like 150 to 200 veterans, and we'd cycle from San Antonio, Texas to Houston. So we'd be on the road, 6 days. We'd go Jacksonville, Florida, Atlanta. So we'd go around the country and live like that. But the purpose of that organization is to take and to get people out of isolation. One of the first steps of the downward spiral to suicide, it goes isolation, then depression, then drugs and alcohol, and then unfortunately death by suicide. So what the purpose there was to be able to take and get people and get all this camaraderie. And we had all levels. We had people that would cycle, they would be amputees, double amputees. They were doing a hand crank bike. And so what was important to me was that as I got in that space, not being a veteran, I wasn't sure how people would accept me. I really had some apprehension about that. And what I found was that because you were there to help them, and they really didn't care about your background, and I can remember getting on a bike and we're riding for 60, 70 miles and chatting up with a bunch of guys. And the other good thing about it, and the reason why I bring that up is because in this spectrum that we're in, sometimes people are afraid to approach somebody. They may have a family member or loved one that's a veteran or first responder, and they don't want to approach them because they're not one. But the truth is, if you approach them with compassion and listening, they'll open up to you. So that's the other thing, was that I never had a story to share. So as I was listening, I could just listen, because, people would share some of the atrocities that they'd seen and what was haunting them. And so I almost felt, in a lot of ways, it was my advantage. You know how sometimes somebody shares something with you and then you share because it's almost like a one-upping thing?
Mm-hmm.
I never had it going on. So I thought it was great. So my message, as we do a lot of seminars, symposiums, is to say, look, it doesn't matter what your background is, just people that you're there to listen for them. So
I think that veterans specifically, maybe active duty military, but veterans aren't just going to spill their whole military story to you. They're not going to say, hey, veteran over here. And when I think of the phrase, thank you for your service, it sounds kind of dismissive to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I try, even to my veteran partners or those that are veterans, I say to them, even though I am a veteran, thank you for wearing the uniform. And I think when you're not a veteran, when you show true interest, what branch of service, where'd you serve, where you want, when you show that kind of interest, someone's going to say, oh, wow, this person really does care. And I think that when you say the words, thank you for your service, it's kind of like, it's like one of those things you just say. I think it's really interesting, too, that when you talked about Duraflex and the skateboards, my son was a huge skateboarder back in the 80s, like back when Tony Hawk was a child.
Right. So what happened?
And he broke so many skateboards. I just thought that was funny that you mentioned that.
Skateboard business was kind of funny. What happened with us was that the real reason why I was in that business was because of the exercise equipment. And our clients were people like Kmart and Penny's and Big Five Sporting Goods and big chains like that, Target. Mm-hmm. And skateboard business was something I kind of inherited. But Duraflex was a good brand. Matter of fact, in the Skateboard Hall of Fame, there's still Duraflex skateboards. But the volume was incredible. And then one day God said there'll be no more skateboard sales. And it just stopped. So we were really fortunate. So I just remember we had shipped our last truck of 70,000 skateboards out there, and the business died. The people that got killed were the people that were huge retailers that had inventory upon inventory of it. And one of the things that killed the market was the small manufacturers that would change. Skateboard magazine, today it was a laminate board, tomorrow it was a double kicktail, the next day it was injection molded wheels, the next day it was hand-poured wheels. So what was happening was the market was moving so fast that the big retailers couldn't keep up.
You can't keep up, exactly.
So we get out of that and we just stayed in the exercise equipment, and we were really a forerunner in the retail exercise equipment. We actually introduced one of the first retail selectorized weight machines, where weight machines weren't even in the market at that point. Mm-hmm. And exercise, it's now called fitness. That was part of the transition, was from exercise to fitness.
Fitness, yes.
The other thing was that the only people that really lifted a lot of weights back then were bodybuilders. And so a lot of the sports teams were afraid that guys would lift and get muscle bound. And then all of a sudden stretching came in. So it's a whole evolution there. It was really exciting. It's exciting to be on the front line, to be designing products that all of a sudden you take off in the marketplace. And so, talk about fun businesses. That was fun.
Well, I think it's interesting that talking about fitness, I started my fitness career back in '84 when I was still in the military. And to see it change and evolve, like you would say, hey, have you heard of this? And I'm like, yeah, it's just another way to say, it's something old, like something old is new again. And they're trying to make it new, like, ooh, calisthenics, and I'm like, oh, please.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
We did that in the military. So, Tony, I have a question for you.
Sure.
What is the percentage of suicides for first responders versus veterans? Is there a marked difference, or is it just pretty much the same?
I was about to say, we'll start off and say that one of the things that shocked me is there's a suicide in the United States every 11 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And when there is one death by suicide, there's like 135 people that are affected by it, whether they're, comrades, whether they're business associates, family, friends. It really has kind of a sprawling effect to it. Now, according to the veteran per day statistics, there's numbers out there that are like, 22 a day. But we tend to think that it's larger than that because not all death by suicide is reported that way.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times it's not reported that way, and it has to do with pensions and things like that. To answer your question, we actually believe that there is as many or more first responders, but statistically there isn't. But one of the challenges there is that, the VA charts and tracks the deaths. First responders, their unions don't. So we don't really have a good handle. There's statistics that are all over the map.
Why is that, Tony? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that seems really important. Why do they not keep statistics like that?
Well, if you think about a union collects dues, and when they don't collect dues anymore, they know somebody passed away. The VA, they're involved, because they're tracking somebody, they're paying pensions, they've got hospital visits, things like that. So they're more attuned to tracking than the unions are. The unions, if somebody just falls away, they may not know the cause of death, they just know they're deceased. So I'll tell you an interesting story. I had started the Healthy America campaign years ago, and we grew it pretty large. And one of our biggest clients was Blue Cross. And what we were doing was we're doing health and fitness screenings, and then identifying people that are at risk for different kinds of disease. And this is at the forefront of preventative medicine. So the problem with preventative medicine was that people knew that preventative medicine worked. If you could treat a disease at the front end, it was less expensive than you could at the back end.
Yes.
Otherwise, you couldn't bring it to the bottom line. You couldn't say, we spent $20 million on preventative medicine and we saved X. But when we were working with Blue Cross and their database, the way the database worked was that they had all these names, the entire population, but they didn't know the health level of anybody until there was an incident. And so what we were doing by the screenings was then starting to do a health profile on their client base. So that's sort of the way the union thing works out. And the first responder and law enforcement, there's as many or more. That's unfortunate. The other thing is that when we look at this, so in our world, it's creating what we call support angels. We want to have people out there that have their radar up, that understand what some of the warning signs are for somebody that's at risk. And so we talk about the isolation and depression, and then, alcohol and drugs. The other thing is that firearms are the number one cause of death by suicide.
Yes.
And so when you have a large law enforcement, veteran population, they have firearms. And so they have access to means. And so one of the things that we talk about in our symposiums and workshops is if you're identified somebody at risk, we'll talk about some of the risk factors are things like death of a loved one, death of a combat buddy, financial stress. A lot of times guys with PTSD that have been deployed come back and they have a hard time fitting in. They have a hard time getting a job. What happens is they can't get a job. What's the next step? Sometimes it's divorce. They find themselves in a divorce battle. Then they find themselves in a child custody battle. At the same time, they're battling with the VA to get, their rating.
Yes.
So there's a compounding thing that happens. And so I'm in Palm Desert, right outside of Palm Springs. We're near 29 Palms, the Marine base. And so we see a lot of young guys that are coming back and they're having these problems. They get to the point where there's no way out. And those are some of the signs. With things that people say, a lot of times, one of the signs is that somebody starts giving away all their possessions.
Yes.
They'll start to give away medals. They'll start to give away things that they cherish, but they give away. Another sign is that they'll take and they'll start to organize your financial situation. Never had a will, and all of a sudden they have a will. that type of thing. Another sign is where you'll start to see that their personal hygiene just goes. They just don't care anymore. And so that's a problem. And when we work in our workshops and our symposiums is to show people what some of the identifiers are and then how to deal with that. And the most important thing, the most important step is to be able to enter in a conversation, just to take and to be able to say to somebody, I really care about you. I've noticed some things different.
Yes.
As opposed to coming at it from judgmental and saying, look, what's wrong with you?
Right. Shake it off. Get it,
Suck it up,
Yeah, suck it up. Exactly.
So in my book is called Silent Battle. And it's really written for families and friends and loved ones of veterans, first responders, and law enforcement. Because from my viewpoint, you asked me about starting a lot of businesses. So I've been around this for over a decade. I see a lot of money spent and a lot of grants that go to research. And the problem with that, in my estimation, is that we keep researching it, but we don't get to where it can help. Just have a lot of data. So what we want to do is throw a broad net, and we want to reach a lot of people that can help people that are at risk. So maybe we're not actually going right at people that are at risk. But if somebody picks up the book or somebody comes to one of our workshops and they're at risk and they'll hear these things that they're going to take, and we're hoping that we can mitigate their chance for suicide.
Yes.
Now, there's a great statistic out there that is, it's over 12 million people a year that contemplate suicide. There's millions of people that actually try, and the good news is they fail. And then we have this huge number of 11 every 11 minutes one succeeds. But what we're trying to do is to get our people that identify people at risk is to create a support network to get help. Now, you might know that somebody's got alcohol abuse and drug abuse, and they want a firearm. And if you're not the one, you might find somebody. You might call another veteran buddy and say, look, we got to get that firearm away from them. Maybe we need to get them in a program, right? And so one of the things that we encourage people is to not feel like there's a huge burden of you identify somebody and then you're all alone. So when we're working, especially with spouses, they're the ones that have it pulled up right away. And they find out, but then they don't know what to do. A lot of times they're afraid. There's some stigma out there. It says, look, if you ask somebody about it, if they have thoughts of suicide, that's going to make them start thinking about it, and they're going to go down a spiral. That's not it.
That's not true, yeah.
They're not going to go down a rabbit hole just because you brought it up.
Right.
So we talk about that. We talk about what are the barriers to somebody starting a conversation. And one of it is, well, I'm not military. I'm not first responder. I don't know. Well, you don't have to know. You just have to listen compassionately.
Right.
So that's one theory. The other thing is that you bringing it up is not going to have them.
Right.
And to not be judgmental and not try to have a solution.
Right.
And say, gee, everybody
try to
loves
fix
you.
it.
Yeah. It's not. That's not the case. It's really the person has a solution. They're just up against it. They've got everything. They see no way out, and they think maybe the world would be better off without them. And that's when it starts to really go south. So if you're listening and you're asking the right questions, one of the questions is like, what's really bothering you? And they go, I don't know. That's an answer, right? But the next question is, well, what do you think it is? Because they know. So one of the things, you said in my bio, my company, Big Media USA, we produce over 20,000 podcasts. I've interviewed probably over 3,000 people. And being an interviewer is great. Like, you're a listener. So we advocate listening, and we advocate writing, asking the questions. And if they're really lost, but they hint that there's somebody you can grab that can help them.
Right.
The other thing is that this happens long distance too. So it may be, I've got somebody working with right now, they've lost a loved one, they've been married for 50 years, partner died, 6 months, and they're really going down a rabbit hole. So constant phone contact and then finding somebody close. We have a lot of veteran organizations that we work with, a lot of guys that just are informal. It's like Tuesday morning coffee at McDonald's. That's sometimes all it takes.
That's all it takes, yeah.
It's not that elaborate. It's just that, they've got something to look forward to. one of the things
Well, one of the things, can I just interject for a second? I think as a veteran, one of the things is, they say, well, why don't you talk to somebody? The fact that we have actually served in the military, we've done all kinds of things, good, bad, and indifferent. So to ask for help, and I've even come across this, not suicide, but, asking for help is like, I got this. I don't need help.
Yeah.
So I think it's really hard for veterans to ask for help because there's, some of them are used to being in charge. Some of them are used to, I've done things, I've handled millions of dollars worth of assets, so then you want me to ask for help? It's almost like I won't say it's an insult, but that's how they feel. They're like, I got this, when they really don't.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that when somebody offers it, as opposed to them asking, it has a different feel to it. If somebody just cares about them, and as opposed to, I get it, like I've got everything together. We say that people that have their shit together, they walk funny, but it's like,
I've never heard that one.
yeah. So if that's the feeling, like I got it all together and I'm not going to really go out and ask somebody, I don't really want to share, I'm embarrassed, they'll think I'm weak. And I get that. And I think that's why if we have somebody, and this is what I've just learned. I mean, I've spent hundreds of hours, thousands of hours on a bike, sitting next to guys, listening. And it was because I just asked. And it was just like, hey, I'm here. I just want to care about you, checking up, how you guys doing. And all of a sudden, the floodgates open up. And I've heard some stories that are just atrocities that, somebody won't even ever share again with somebody. But there's sort of a relief in getting it off the chest. And but you're absolutely right. That's one of the problems. And again, it's the you're not alone. It's that isolation, right? It's like I'm going to fix it myself. You're not alone.
Let me ask this question, Tony. So you understand, the veteran suicide of first responder, and I do, not that I understand it, but I care because they are veterans. How do people who, aside from yourself, of course, people who have no affiliation with the military, do you think they care about this? Because I feel like they kind of seem like, oh, that's so sad, but that's a military issue. You know what I mean? Do you think they really care? I mean, that's kind of a callous question, but I'm asking it anyway.
It's a great question. I'll tell you, yesterday we did a symposium. We're hired by the Association of Builders and Contractors. And what's interesting is that the construction industry has the highest rate of suicide of any major industry.
Wow. And
so this association realizes that, and I just happened to meet this woman at a trade show. We started talking about it. She goes, oh, I'd love to have your program. So when we went in there and we're doing our symposium yesterday, and what's the makeup of the room? Well, one of the things in construction, we have a lot of veterans. There's a big veteran population there.
Yes.
And so you have people that are there that are somehow tied to a veteran, family members, friends, that type of thing. Here you have business associates. You have one other group. It's kind of interesting group, and I didn't think about this when we started, but we have the people, there's people out there that take CPR classes. Why do they take them? Well, a lot of them take them just in case it ever happens, they know what to do. Right?
Exactly, yeah.
So I'm finding that we have people that are coming to our classes or workshops that are interested. They may not have somebody on their radar right now,
but they want to learn.
They want to learn. The other thing is we have a group, and this is one of the things we really talk about, is that we're trying to mitigate. It's the, if I would have only known. There are people carrying it around for 40 years, 50 years, where somebody close to them took their life by suicide and they had no clue. And they're just like, gosh, if I just knew, I could have talked to him. I could have. So we work with getting rid of that. It's kind of like once you came to our workshop, now you can't say if I only knew, because now you know.
Now you know, exactly.
So working with that, and what are some of the signs? And I learned a lot from my dad. He didn't know he was teaching me, but my dad lived to be 90. My mom died at 75. And so that's a long time to live alone.
Yes.
Right? And what my dad did is he number one, I realized that I would go visit him and I might be the only person he talk to for a week. Guys are just not chatty. They don't pick up the phone.
No, they're not.
And so now when I come across somebody and they start to talk to me, I really listen, because even if what they're talking about makes no sense to me at all, or why are they telling me this? I'm thinking, you know what? I may be the only person they see for like 3 or 4 days or a week. So we're talking about that, getting people's radar up, about those kind of things. The other thing is habits. What my dad lived in Burbank. He had worked for Disney his whole life, retired out of Disney. And every Wednesday, he'd take his car to the car wash, drive to the car wash, drive it home, put it in the garage. But he did that because that was his thing to get out, right? So he looked forward to going out there. He got his pension checks and those type of things, and he would take them to the bank himself because he got out.
Right.
He had to interface with people. So I tell people, don't discourage people from doing things like that, because that's, in their mind, that's their way to get out of isolation, the little thing. That if you can help them somehow,
Right.
people we pick up. We've got, for our network, I have a guy that I was working with that on the day he was going to get the news of his custody hearing, a couple of buddies, we just took him to lunch and was hung with them that day. We really, really kind of made stuff up. But we knew that he was going to get bad news or good news, and that he was in that spiral. So we're teaching people, we're talking to people about just being more compassionate, just realizing what they can do more. I don't really find, honestly, a big stigma about, if you care about somebody, it doesn't matter if you're first responder, military, law enforcement, people just care. And I think that's a great thing.
Well, I think it's also, there's listening to understand and listening to fix it. Yeah. These people that are struggling, sometimes they just want someone to just hear them.
Right.
And I think it's important for anyone who is trying to help someone is understanding that sometimes, a lot of times maybe, you can't fix a situation, but you can be there to support and to listen. And I think that in and of itself is huge.
Those skills that run true in marriage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I do that with my husband. I'll say, hey, can I talk to you for a second? And my husband will say, okay, do you need my advice or you just want to vent? And I said, I just need to vent. As soon as he picks up the phone, I go, I need to vent. He goes, okay. And he will shut up and let me vent. And afterwards I go, oh, thank you so much.
He probably puts the phone down when you say, and then does something else and comes back.
See, that's the same thing to me. He'll call me and say, I need to vent. Tony, for someone listening right now who may be struggling silently, whether they're a veteran, first responder, or just someone feeling the weight of life, what message would you want them to hear from you today?
When things are just, you're pushed against the wall and you don't see a way out, for me and for a big part of our organization, we really rely on our faith. God's had a plan, as bad as it seems, and it does seem like there's no way out. It does seem like everything's going to happen. Well, one thing is, take one day at a time. Don't get stressed out what's going to happen. In the Bible, it says that every day has enough troubles to deal with the troubles for that day. And I think when people start to look in the future and try to solve a problem that may be happening 3 weeks from now, you get into trouble. So take it a day at a time. I think that's a great message. And I think the other thing is to have hope that situation could turn, and to look at that, and also to get support. Don't have your shit together so much that you won't talk to somebody, and grab a friend and figure out who that friend is too. Here's one of the things we talk about is you have different kinds of friends. You have kind of friends says, hey, my back's hurting. They go, yeah, great, suck it up.
Yeah.
So don't go to that person.
Right.
Yeah, the other person say, my back's really hurting. They kind of give you that there, that mother's care.
Mm-hmm.
So identify those people in your world. You need them all. But,
yes. But for different reasons.
Yeah,
in your life.
They're going to have a little compassion. The person's going to kick your butt. And there's sometimes you need to go to that person to get your butt kicked and turn around and, don't have a pity party. We talk about, there's a cycle that's called victim, persecutor, rescuer. Mm-hmm. What happens if somebody becomes a victim? It's like everybody's against them. Everything always happens to them.
Yes.
And that happens for a period of time, and then they start lashing out around everybody. Then they become this persecutor. And now they're going to get back at everybody that victimized them.
Mm-hmm.
And the next step in that cycle then becomes they feel bad that they yelled at people, so they become a rescuer. Can I help you out? Can I do that? Can I get that for you?
What can I do for you? Yeah.
So, it's a cycle. And the way to stop that cycle is to keep them out of victim and to let them realize that, they're creating things around them. It's not everybody's picking on them. They're not against them. They don't have much energy.
And it's not healthy.
Yeah. No, it's
for anyone. The friend, the family member, whomever, it's not healthy for anyone. Tony, where can people connect with you? Or if they need your service or they need their help, right, where can they connect with you or learn more about Helping Heroes USA?
Well, our website, helpingheroesusa.org, and they can reach out to me. They can reach out to our staff there. Our workshops, our symposiums are free. We have great sponsors, and we get people to donate, and that's how I never wanted a financial barrier. If somebody really wanted to come to one of our workshops, I don't want it to be a financial barrier if they couldn't.
Yes.
So we offer those free, and we're just fortunate that we're out there and we have people donate and sponsor. So in my book coming out, silentbattle.life is someplace else they can get information. But really the hub for us is helpingheroesusa.org. And we're glad to have people contact us and reach out, maybe direct them in the right way. And sometimes just talking to somebody for a little bit that's going down the path or going down a rabbit hole. The answers, I really think for a lot of people, the answers are, it's sort of like when, like for me, my wife comes up to me and says, which one do you like better, the red one or the black one, the dress? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, which one do you like?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to get in that. It's a lose, So it's just being supportive for somebody, letting them talk, asking them questions. That's really what it's all about.
Well, Tony, thank you so much for being on the Sisters in Service podcast today and telling us more about your organization. And for anyone listening, suicide is, it's a horrible thing. But when you get to the point where you feel like you have no way out, that's even more horrible. Is that a word? Is that a phrase? It's horrific. That's what I want to say. It's horrific. So if you know someone who you think is struggling, connect with them. Let them talk to you. Listen. Don't try to help them by, I think I have the what you need. Sometimes they just need someone to talk to. And if you don't know what to do, Tony DeMeio is right there. I'll make sure that your website and stuff is on there, Tony, so people can contact you. So, as always, please stay safe, take care of each other until next time. And please remember, it's never too late to start your impossible.
Kat, thank you so much for having me on here. Helping
You're
us
welcome.
Forward. I really appreciate it. The more exposure we can get, the more people we can reach, that's our goal. Thank you so much.
Thank you.